And yeah, let me tell you a bit about Aage, who came up with the idea with me to create this conference. And then we connected with Neil, Portal to Ascension, and really grateful that we did this. Been on his show a few times. He's been on my show a few times, and we've become great friends and just joining forces in these crazy times. So Aage was born on a farm in Norway, came to the USA at the age of 25 to become a professional pilot. He did so, and in a partnership, owned a flight school, air taxi, and air carrier. After retiring from flying, he started studying the mind deeper, taught the Zox Pro Mind Development course, which is, and is a hypnotist, author of several books, and was a TV talk show host for 6 years, and is a radio talk show co-host on broadcast Team Alpha. He has been teaching classes on self-hypnosis, meditation, psychic abilities, astral travel, and universal success principles. At this conference, he will be talking about the scientific evidence that we live in a self-aware, mind-created computer simulation, and will reduce the science to simple principles and analogies everyone can understand, and how we can reverse the aging process, as the Nobel Prize was given for its discovery. And nobody told us. Time permitting, he can explain time travel and how it works with photographic evidence of time travel. This is going to be awesome. So take it away, Aage Nost.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, this is going to be so fun. And I am so honored. If you guys out there in Radio Land, look at the panel of the speakers on this forum. I mean, these are the most accomplished and knowledgeable people on earth when it comes to anything outside of the box. And I am so honored to be part of that. Maybe I'm in over my head here, but it feels good. And I know I got a little different talking style than many, and I like to have fun also while I do that. And I know that most good speeches, they always start with a joke. But I'm sorry, I don't really have one for you because my mind works like the browser on my computer. I got 47 windows open, 8 is frozen, and I have no idea where the music is coming from. So I'm going to try to work myself through this. And I only got about an hour and a half to explain the universe, how it works, and a lot of the things in it. So I guess I'm going to start. And it's not enough time, so I'm going to reduce it to commonly understood principles of quantum mechanics. And I will talk about 3 things. One of them is reversing the aging process. And yes, this is actually real. And I'm going to talk about that later on in the talk here. But I want to mention this, that, yeah, the Nobel Prize was given for the discovery of it. And it can be very simple. Now, if you're 22 years old, 12 foot tall and bulletproof, you don't really care. But you have parents. Get them here, get them from anywhere in the house, get them and put them down by the time I get to that talk on reversing the aging process, because I know they are going to want to know. And because this is something that I get emails about every week from people that has been doing what I'm doing, and they are so thankful because all kinds of ailments and stuff are going away, and they feel like wrinkles are going away, hair colors coming back and stuff like that. So there's neat stuff happening here. And I also want to talk about how the universe works. There is actually some science behind all the stuff that you hear the other speakers here talk about today and tomorrow and yesterday. Yes, outside of the physical, there is things going on that is hard to explain, but much of it can be explained through quantum mechanics. And that can be reduced to parables that is fairly easy to understand. And I also will be talking about time travel. And this is, yeah, it's a difficult one to wrap our heads around, but I will show you some pictures that prove that I've had some experiences with that. And I also am going to show you an electronic device that I've had some very strange experiences with. And I think that most of us by now have figured it out that the world is not necessarily exactly like we have been told. We've been treated like mushrooms, and you know what that means. We live in a self-aware, holographically generated, mind-created universe. Boy, that's a mouthful. I'm going to say that again. It's a self-aware, holographically generated, and mind-created universe. And there's some credibility behind this because I'm going to lean on quantum mechanics a little bit here too. And there is a physicist. His name is James Gates. And he says that using the principles of quantum mechanics on the blackboard, he says that deep in the equations that explains fundamental particles, like, you know, electrons, protons, neutrons, and all the way down to the omega that is phasing in and out of physical existence, we find computer language down there. Ones and zeros, and concepts represented by ones and zeros. And we are created by those particles, electron, protons, and all these different particles that make up what we are. Even, I wonder, why is it so hard to understand that? It's because, well, let's say DNA has computer language in it. We can understand that because it can be mapped and we see it. And this computer language is so symmetrical, he says, it cannot be random. And these scientists, when they talk about this, their mind works different. When they look at an equation, they don't see numbers and letters and symbols, they see concepts. Like if I was to talk with a physicist about this and I mention alcohol, he won't listen, he won't hear alcohol necessarily. He says C2H5OH, that is alcohol to him, and he see the whole concept of it. So when they look at the blackboard, they don't see just letters and numbers and all that. They see concepts interacting with each other. And this gets a little complicated for us, but for them that has been trained in it, that's how they read what they have written. And what it actually means to us is that there is a computer program creating all this and everything around us. I wonder if that's Nori. Nope. Okay. Nori is, she was going to do the next show here, and she is not well. She is on her, in the emergency care. So anyway, she had food poisoning. So anyway, sorry about that. I had an incredible experience about a few years back that also proves what quantum mechanics is talking about. I had a universal download where the universe was downloaded into my mind, both in full concept and detail, and it explained how the universe functioned. And maybe I should just say a little bit about that experience. I was sitting in meditation, and that is how these things usually come to you. And it is nothing special about me. Many people have had those things. In fact, Nikola Tesla said in an interview that I could see the past, present, and the future at the same time. And there are philosophers, there are inventors, and there are many other people that say they've had this experience. So it is nothing special. Then there is a little bit later in the talk, I may talk about how actually you can, the process of getting these kinds of things. It could be interesting. And when we think about that, everything around us is a computer simulation. That opens up for a lot of possibilities. I said that we are in a mind-created universe. Well, that should mean that the mind, but whose mind? Well, the universal mind has set down the foundation for everything, and we all have agreed on that. So our mind is the one that is projecting it from the universal mind or universal consciousness through our mind into our environment around us. And since we are the guy or the gal sitting at the computer doing this, we have the capability of creating things in our environment. So for those people out there that says, well, whatever happens will happen, I'll almost guarantee you, yeah, it'll happen. But it may not necessarily be that what you like, because we are filled with negative programming from society, from media, from government, from all kinds of other educational sources that plant ideas in our mind, and we accept them as facts. That's where we went wrong in the first place. We should create our own facts based on what we want and place that in our subconscious mind, because it's been determined that about 90% of your day is created around the subconscious mind programs that is already in there, and 10% of what's happened is actually created from our own mind, of the surface of it, the conscious mind. So this gets a little convoluted. So when we figured out who's sitting at the computer, that's us. Let's then concentrate on creating good things instead of the negative things that we are getting. And I have an analogy I'm going to run by you, and this will explain how the universe or how your mind can create things. I am a hypnotist, and if I put you in a soft chair and talk to you for 10 minutes and tell you that when you wake up, you will have an elephant standing next to you in the room. If I did my job right, I snap my finger and bring you back out, you would see that elephant. You can reach out and touch the snout, and you can feel the rough skin. You can hear him breathing. You can smell him. But there is a problem. I can't see the elephant because there is no elephant there. But to you, that elephant is absolutely real. In your existence, that thing is real. So, what happened? Did your real world go away? Yeah, it did. It did go away on the basis of a subconscious mind program that I helped you place into your mind, telling you there is an elephant. That's the power of the subconscious mind programs. So that's why you should spend some time concentrating on creating good things in your mind. So that will pass from conscious understanding into subconscious mind programs and outweigh all the negative ones that has been placed there by CNN and people like that. And how this happened, that is actually, you can create the future as well as you can create the present on the basis of these things. And that is that you can create something in your mind and put it, when you use that creation in your mind, it's not a creation of words, it's one of emotion, vivid, colorful pictures, gratitude for already having what you want, and love it. Then you take that, roll it into a ball, you place it into the future at a time-coded event. Don't use a calendar. 22nd of July, it means nothing to the universe. That is that time is something that is totally a creation of our mind. Because outside of the physical, above the astral worlds, past, present, and future exists in the now at the same time. So when you place that in the future, put it at a time-coded event like a birthday party, Christmas party, New Year's party, on another event that you may have, where you visualize yourself standing around with friends that is also benefiting off of what you have created, standing around toasting it to the success of what you have created. That is intention-driven thought. That's the spiritual language. And that's why most prayers go unanswered. They don't use that language, they use words. Words are worthless outside, or basically worthless outside of the physical. It's the images and the intention and the thought and the emotion that goes with the words that has value outside of the physical. And knowing that, why don't we spend some time, create these things in our mind, place it in the future, and create our own future? When we do that, we should go back and forth every day, visiting that thing that we created. And when we go back and forth to it, we put more detail on it, we strengthen it, it becomes stronger. And what we lay down attractor strings to it, that is tiny white strings that attaches that thing in the future to our present moment. And we are drawn up this now that becomes the timeline to that thing in the future. Billionaires, they do this. And I speak about that in one of my other books, Universal Success Principles and How Billionaires Think. And deep in the subconscious, the superconscious and the universal mind is where creation happens. It is not in the conscious mind. That just comes up with ideas and massage them. But it has to be transferred into the subconscious. And from there on, through the superconscious mind out to the universal mind, where that concept you created in your mind is looking for a match in vibration. When it looks around in the universe, try to find it. It could find it in some other person's mind. It could find it in the Akashic record. It could find it as a concept somewhere in the patent bureau. It could find it anywhere where it finds the match to what you created in your mind. Now it starts bringing it back. It comes back through the universal mind and the superconscious mind, which is basically an empty connection device, and then to the subconscious mind, but you don't know about it yet. And then the subconscious mind hands it off to conscious understanding. So you can start seeing what you looked for and how to create it, so you can go and help the universe help you create it. Because we should do whatever we can to help the universe create. It's the old saying, you know, God will give you the nut, but he won't crack it. We got to do our part. And this is a spiritual language. And it is never really spoken much about in religion. There is, well, there's a book, you know, written about 1769 years ago. Some people, it's called the book. Some people call it the Bible. They never really talk about how to pray except for using the words of it much. But words are not the best way to do it. It's the emotion is the carrier of thought that had images and everything attached to it. That is where miracles come from. When you speak to the universe in its language, it is understood and it likes to help. All creation starts in the mind. So you place it, go back and visit it. And if you understand that, then it becomes also very important what, I mean, we need to do this on a regular basis. And then the question becomes, what should we create? Well, what do you want? Some people don't even know what they want, especially those that say, well, yeah, just hanging out and we'll just see what happens. And I'll guarantee you it'll happen. I'm going to ask you a question. And I want you to think about it. But I don't want you to come up with an answer to me. I want you to answer you. And wait at least 24 hours before you come up with the final answer. And think on it often, because this is going to be a very important question for you. The reason that you should wait 24 hours is because I guarantee you, you don't know how to think big enough. The question is, what would you start tomorrow morning if you knew you could not fail? Okay, I paused a little bit on purpose here because I want you to think. What would you start tomorrow morning if you knew you could not fail? Think back on what I said before. Everything starts in the mind. The mind can create absolutely anything in your physical existence around it, around you. It can create absolutely anything when you help the universe create for you and through you. So decide on something that is big enough to satisfy you, that you want to accomplish. Spend some days meditating on it. Create it in your mind. A billionaire told me one time, I don't start anything before I first have it all worked out in my mind. That means how it looks, how it works, who's going to work it, who's going to be in charge, where are we going to have it, all of these things. He works out in his mind before he starts doing one single thing physically to create it. We should do the same. Billionaires, they think different than we do. That is why they're billionaires. And I know there are some crooks in there too, but it doesn't matter. Creation can be done at any level of spirituality. So the creation happens on the basis of what comes from here. The mind, I'm pointing to your head and your heart, because the heart is a big portion of the creation process. There's actually a brain in the heart, which have about 50 to 75,000 neurons, that is hardwired to the pituitary, and it is responsible for emotions and creation. And a lot of these things go through the pituitary out, which is the gate to the universal mind. And let me give you an example of how powerful this can be. Just one example here. I think it's about 25 years ago. This is the absolute best example that I can possibly think of on the magnitude of it. Well, we've done some things too, stopping hurricanes and stuff, but Art Bell, most people know him. He was a radio host, was hosting Coast to Coast AM. And one night, he was trying to help the people in Texas because there had been no rain in Texas for about 4 months. Towns were running out of water, cattle was dying, there were brush fires everywhere. And he asked his listeners, let's all visualize rain over Texas. I was listening that night and I participated. I did, and so did a lot of other people. During the latter part of that night and the next day, there were thunderstorms and rain all over Texas. And the weather forecasters came out and said, we are dumbfounded. This shouldn't have happened. There were no moisture in the computer models anywhere. It should not have happened. But the moisture showed up and we had rain. They didn't understand. Well, I understood. It was because of the mastermind created by Art Bell's listener focusing on rain over Texas. Now think about that. That's powerful. Norilov and I have created a mastermind. We call it the Mastermind Connection. If anybody wants to be part of that, you can email it. I'm going to give you the email. That's themastermindconnection@gmail.com. And we do some incredible things. And one of them, we helped stop a hurricane that came up from Africa, sneaking up the coast of Cuba at the category 4 and a 5, bouncing back and forth. Headed straight for Florida. In 90 miles, that hurricane collapsed to less than a tropical storm of 75 miles an hour. It was 200 miles an hour when it left Cuba. In 90 miles, it collapsed. That shouldn't have happened, because when a hurricane moves over hot, warm water, it picks up more moisture and becomes even stronger. This is the power of the mind. And this is what you can do. But you got to go within and find it. And I have another book here, Spiritual Science, Higher Conscious Thinking, and How to Access the Universal Consciousness, where I explained in detail how to do these things. And we also do that in the Mastermind Connection. I will be really glad to take some questions after the tail end of my talk here. So we can do that, but I want to talk about something else. And I want to talk about reversing the aging process. This is such a controversial issue. It has really not much with medicine to do. It is, and of course, here's a disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, so I cannot prescribe or say anything that relates to any medical procedure or cures or anything like that, because let's face it, I'm not a doctor, so whatever I say will not work for anybody because the government says so, and they will never lie to you. So take it for what it is and work with it and research on your own. And the thing is, in 2009, 3 doctors got the Nobel Prize for discovering an enzyme that reverses the aging process. And nobody told us about it. This should have been the most publicized medical discovery this millennia. But nobody seems to know about it. 12 years ago, or 11, this was discovered, and nobody seems to know about it. Even doctors don't dare to talk about it. It seems like there's a black hole around it. We wonder why. Of course, I got a theory. It doesn't fit the agenda because somebody that think they are somebody say that the earth is overpopulated. Why in the world would we want to extend their life to have people quit dying? And what will happen to Social Security and the pension programs if people quit dying, right? So don't mess with the paradigm. That's the way they want it. Besides, when you die, they get to cash in the bond that they wrote against your life when you were born. Minimum of $2.5 million, and that's grown to many millions over the years. Oh yeah, there's money in people dying. So I would say there is some fear among the doctors. I know there are some naturopathic doctor. I know one that talks about it. And the thing is, it's simple. I'm doing it. And I'm 75 years old. 5 years ago, I started to look a little ragged in the edges, gray hair and, lots of wrinkles. And some of that seems to go away and hair color's coming back some. So it's not an overnight process. You're not going to be, a snot-nosed kid 3 weeks from now on a Thursday at 2 in the afternoon. That's not going to happen. But it takes a while. But the body starts rebuilding itself. And when we talk about reversing the aging process, we're nipping at the concept of immortality, aren't we? The question is, immortality, is that possible? Well, immortality, I guess if you look at the definition of it, that should be something like not ever die. I'm not so sure that is all possible because sooner or later you're going to step in front of a bus doing 60 miles an hour and all bets are off. You could get sick or you have an accident and things happen. But there are some people that has become very old. And I plan on doing that. I'm probably the healthiest person I know. I've never really been sick in my life for many different reasons. But I found some really, 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 really old people. First of all, the first example I want to tell you about is in the mid-1950s, there was a Chinese university professor that came to New York. And it was on an exchange program. An American university professor went to Peking at the time, now it's Beijing, and they were exchanging cultural concepts and ideas and stuff. And this university professor from China went out with some colleagues in New York one time, and they had dinner, and he got food poisoning and died. Well, you know what happens when you do that? Then you end up at the morgue and they start going through his papers and they found that something's wrong here. This can't be right. So they called the Chinese ambassador and they said, wait a minute, this guy is 154 years old. That can't be right. And the ambassador told them, yes, he is. So they asked him again, how can that be? And the ambassador told them, well, first of all, he only eat Chinese herbs and berries for food. And for the second, he knew he could never die. Think on that. That goes back to my concept of whatever's in your mind is what you're going to have in your life. He knew he could not die. And we can create anything around us and in us by the way we think and what we do. So now it could start making sense that he was 154 years old. I found another guy. And by the way, having a passport saying you're 154 years old, that pretty much that the government guarantee your age. Found another guy. That was Li Xingyuan. He was a Chinese, he was a martial art instructor for the Chinese army for as long as anybody could remember. And he died from an accident at 256. And the government verified his age. There's kind of a cute little side story to that one, that New York Times, the newspaper, had somebody in Japan at the time that they were working with, where I think he was a newspaper reporter. And they sent him over to China when they found out about this. And they went to the village where this guy lived, and they talked to the people there. And they showed the newspaper reporter Chinese documents congratulating him on his 200th birthday and his 250th birthday. And there were some other papers that also confirmed his age. And he had 23 wives and over 200 children and grandchildren over that time. Wow, So when we think about that, what is possible? Think about that. I also found a Saudi Arabian woman that he died at the age of 152 not long ago. And there was a big thing written up in Mideastern newspaper all over the place in the Middle East. Well, there was nothing about that in the Western media, and nobody heard about it. But it was a big thing over there. But the thing about it is that these people, they don't live like we do in the West. On top of what I just mentioned here, look at the Sumerian kings list. There were kings that lived for thousands of years. Google the Sumerian kings list, and you'll get an eyeful. Now, all these people, they live different than we do. I am sure they ate pure food. They didn't eat the pretend food that we get at the grocery store full of poisons and the poisons in the drinking water that you get from the tap. Now we have fluoride in the water. Fluoride is one of the most toxic substances on Earth. And they put it in your drinking water. I was a pilot. I flew freight. And there, ever so often, we got a barrel, a yellow barrel with black stripes around it, skulls and bones on the forward parts of it. And it said on there, even there and on the hazardous hazmat manifest, that if we touched the barrel with bare hands, we had to immediately go wash our hands and call poison control. And I was commissioned to fly these barrels to different cities. Can you imagine why? Yeah, for the city to put it in your drinking water. Put that one in your pipe and smoke it. Are you sure you want to drink tap water anymore? Most cities have it. I think almost not all of them. There are countries now in Europe that is banning it, and there's some awareness coming around from it. Now, another thing is that science knows what causes aging. There is really only one reason for aging, though there is many contributors to that one reason. And aging usually leads to death, or what we call death, at least physical termination. Even in the Genome Project, they found 3 contributors to this reason. And even though there's only one cause, but several, what they call it, 3 contributors, one of them is shortening. The real reason is shortening of the telomeres at the end of the chromosomes inside your cells. The telomeres, they are kind of like the end of a shoelace. It's a little hardened part of the end of the shoelace that makes you able to put the shoelace through the grommet in so you can tie your shoes together. For every time your cell divide, that end of the chromosome, the telomere, gets shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter until there is nothing left. And when that happens, the chromosomes start fraying at the end, and the cells are no longer able to replicate themselves. And you get stuck with old cells in your body, and you get older and older and older and older, and you die. Now, this is something that can be corrected. The shortening of the telomeres is an effect off of the lack of one enzyme in your body. That's called telomerase or telomerase. I know people call it different things. I call it telomerase. And this is the enzyme that the 3 doctors in 2009 discovered, not just discovered it, but also the effect of having enough of it in your body or having too little of it. They did their experiments on mice, old mice that was ready to croak. And they injected this enzyme into them, and in a very short time, they were jumping around like little energetic mice. And they analyzed the genetic structure and they found, I'll be doggone, the telomeres are longer again. And they did some more research on that, and they found the cause for aging is the shortening of the telomeres at the end of the chromosomes. I'm going to get to it in a bit. We can do the same thing. And since that's about 12 years ago now, and a lot of research has gone into this, and much more understanding is now available to us, so we can make it happen for us. And another thing that the Genome Project found out, and that is that they had 3 major reasons for aging and death, and one of them was a actually a nutritional disorder was the first one they came up with. And we can take care of that. We can eat minerals and vitamins and supplements and stuff. We can take care of that, because somewhere on my computer I have a Senate document from the U.S. Senate explaining that all of the farm soil is depleted of minerals. Minerals are very important for our body to be able to be functioning and healthy. So we got to take a mineral supplement. You know, that doctor that tell you, yeah, eat good food, you know, you get the nutrients you need. Either he is ignorant or he's lying through his teeth to sell you more drugs. You take your pick. Now, the other one is, there is, well, think of it this way also. The body is a self-correcting machine if we give it what it needs to correct and replenish itself. And then we have a genetic disorder. That genetic disorder is, a function of that is that the pituitary is shrinking and not creating enough growth hormone and telomerase for the body to replenish itself. This can also be remedied through genetic gene therapy and things like that. It's very expensive and it's lengthy, and it can be done, but it's a little convoluted. But then the third reason for aging and death, oh yeah, we're probably going to lose a few people on this one, and that is religion. And I can hear a few people laughing back there. Think about it. Most religions, they're telling you, well, yeah, you're going to grow old and you're going to die. Okay, and we have accepted that because, especially since we were small, we always remembered believing what our parents told us, what the preacher told us, and what society tells us, and medical science is telling us. Yeah, they're the authorities, so they got to be right. But think about it. The religion tells us that we're going to go old and we're going to die. But think about it also this way. When you get older, because you don't eat right and you do the wrong things at the wrong time, you get sickly, your knees start hurting, and you start having operations to get new metal knees, and you start losing your mind. You can't remember who your wife's name is anymore, and all things go wrong with you. You get heart transplants, and you get all kinds of goofy things, and you get older and you get sicklier and you hurt everywhere. And religion is telling you that when you get old, you're going to die, and you go to this wonderful new place where there is no pain, there is no disease, there is only bliss. And when you are hurting everywhere, that place starts to look pretty good to you. And your mind is starting to draw you towards it, and you're going to die. Did that make sense? That is why I say religions are one of the biggest plagues on earth next to government. I have a paper on another computer somewhere. Just happened to know the second in command of the Genome Project, and he sent me a paper. The title of the paper was "The Secret of Immortality Has Been Solved." Well, they found it in the 90s, because there is also one that is called the immortality gene, that they call it, but it was not published. That is a gene that solves some of these challenges. And it is obvious that people have the capacity for old age. The Center for Disease Control, a few years back, maybe 5-6 years ago now, I remember hearing about this. They came up with a brand new disease that had not existed before. And it's a disease called aging. Does that tell you something? They're exactly right. It is a disease, and it can be cured. So, how do we reverse the aging process? I want to talk about that a little bit. There is a pharmaceutical, or actually it's called a nutraceutical, but it's made by a pharmaceutical. It's called TA-65. And I've researched this one a little bit. I've never used it, but I researched it, and I find some people say that is wonderful. It do great things for me. And other people say Didn't do anything for me. Taking it for 3 years, 2 years, nothing. So the jury is out on that one. So we have to do our own evaluation. If you find it on, you can actually get it on the internet. I think Amazon, I think I looked about a year ago and they had it. And it'll set you back $400 a month or something like that to take it. And for a lot of people, that's worth it. Take the chance. If it doesn't work, fine. If it works, wonderful. But there is another way that I am doing, and that is doing it the natural way through herbal medicine that create the disorder. I mean, it corrects the disorder. And that is the Chinese herbs that was probably most the cause for Li Xingyuan dying at the age of 256 in China. I studied that mind in several different languages, and it seems like go to foreign sources before they translate it into English, because somehow the good parts seem to be left out of the translations when it comes through Google. Go to other sources from other papers, from research papers in other countries and stuff like that. You can find some of these things. Our body create this enzyme, telomerase, all on its own. And we can help the body do it. And when we get enough of this enzyme, it will become, like it says in the papers that was issued to the Nobel Committee in 2009. Somewhere in those papers, it says, one of the doctors wrote, if we had enough of this enzyme in our body, there would be no reason for anyone to ever die from old age anymore. I would suggest, don't listen to me, go to the Nobel Committee's website, go down to 2009, scroll down again to medical submissions, and read the papers. You're gonna love it. So what did this guy, Li Xingyuan, eat, and how did he live? Well, he was a martial art instructor. There's a lot of mind discipline that is taught in the martial arts, and I wish everybody on this panel and this listening audience would look into what you can gain from starting to study martial arts. I did, and it helped me a lot decades ago. And one of the things that he did, he had a ritual of things that he did during the day. He woke up, and when he woke up in the morning, he had a ritual that lasted about an hour of things that he did. Meditation was one of them, and he did other things before he went to work and did something. And in the evening, he did the same thing. He didn't eat in the morning or noon. He ate in the evening. And here I'm going to mention some of the things of the herbals that he took. The most important thing that he took was the herbs of astragalus. Astragalus. There's a lot of research on this one. Medical research showing that this astragalus has equal or better results than the TA65 for the purpose of lengthening the telomeres, which stops the aging process. Another herb that he took was the Jiaogulan herb, J-A-O-G-U-L-A-N, Jiaogulan herb, which is called the immortality herb in China. He also ate wild ginseng. For some reason, it's hard to find here in the United States. I am taking Korean ginseng, and I imagine some others may be also good. Korean is very close to the Chinese herb, is what I'm heard. He also took gotu kola. And for those of you that was foresighted enough to have a piece of paper and a pen ready, just keep writing. And if you didn't, run it back and listen to it again. Then he ate goji berries. I buy that stuff by the pound. I'm out right now, but I buy it by the pound and eat it just kind of snack during the day. Then he ate ling shi. And it appeared as he also ate he shou vu. And of course, he took minerals. And in addition to what I found out about him, I also take cayenne pepper to keep the arteries clean. I'm not going to have a heart attack because of bad arteries. And remember also, he ate raw foods. Why? When you cook the food, you kill it. Think about it. If they stuck you in a pan and turn up the heat, what would happen to you? Yeah, you'd die too. You'd be cooked. So if you cook the food, you kill all the enzymes in it, and enzymes are so important for the body. I ran across some medical research a couple of decades ago from a research hospital in Stuttgart, Germany, where they had a long survey, and they found that anybody that ate a bowl of raw oatmeal every day of their life live on the average of 11 years longer than the ones that don't. Think on that. And also, we got to have exercise, especially cardio, because that also helps the heart. And think of the people in Iceland. They are hardly ever sick. Why? Iceland is a volcanic island. Everything is full of sulfur. When they eat their own food, they get a lot of sulfur. That's why we should take, if we live in a place where we have no volcanic activity at all, we should take sulfur as a supplement. And in one of the previous talks, there was one that mentioned in the chat room that he had problem with the integration of the left and the right brain. Here's a good one for you. Look it up on YouTube. It's called Super Brain Yoga. It is a way to interact or combine or make the right and the left brain work together. You join the two hemispheres. That means not that you lose the ability of one or the other one. You get magnify effectivity of the two of them together. The way you do that, you reach over from your right hand, touch your left earlobe, and your left hand touch your right earlobe and massage them as you do squats. I don't understand why the squats, but it is part of the process. When you do that for 3 to 4 minutes, you put electricity from your hands into the earlobes, and the pressure points or the electric points on the earlobe that goes and joins the two hemispheres. This has been done as an experiment on D and F students in school. Soon as they start doing that, they jump to A and B students. Because now if they're dyslexic, that goes away a lot of times. If they cannot remember anything, they start remembering things. Try this. You're going to love it. We'll go to YouTube and watch Super Brain Yoga. It's going to be worth it to you. And I wrote down something that I think is worth talking about. There is something that will help people stay healthy. This is something that was a martial art master told me decades ago. He said, uh, actually, if you do this one thing, you will never be sick in your life. I've done that one thing and I really never been sick in my life. And he said, no, I'm going to get to the next subject here shortly. And it goes back to the Nobel Prize of 1931, where Dr. Otto Warburg discovered that no bacteria or virus can live in a heavy oxygenated environment. So my martial art pastor told me, take 20 deep breaths until you get dizzy. Keep breathing like that so you stay slightly dizzy for 3 to 5 minutes. What happens is that you are getting an excessive amount of oxygen into your lung compared to what you are used to, so you get dizzy. That oxygen goes from your lung through the air sac into your bloodstream. The blood gets everywhere in your body, snuggles up to virus and bacteria, and kills it. You can, if you get a cold, do this a couple or 3 times in a day. That cold should be gone in 24 hours. But less than a year ago, I woke up in the morning with a running nose. I did it in about a day and a half, and it was all gone. And this is something that anybody can do. And I guess I should maybe talk a little bit about time travel. I have some pictures and things that I'm going to show you in a second. I have read 6 or 7 different scientific papers now that says, yes, time travel is possible. It also says, we know how to make a time travel machine. Even Michio Kaku says that. But he also says that we do not have the power to fuel it yet. Well, there are some ways to look at that, because he is talking about entirely nuts and bolts machine. Well, I have an electronics device that in itself is nuts and bolt machine. And I practiced with it and I practiced. I must have done it 50 times and I couldn't get anything to work. But then I started manipulating my brainwave pattern. Through lowering it down to about 7 cycles per second, I started to get some experiences. Because now it was a mind-matter interface between the machine and my mind. And think about time travel itself. There is some science that explains this, and I recommend for people to look at some major newspapers. One of them is BBC.com, has an article on there. It is dated July 7, 2018, and it says, we can build a time machine. Go read it. The science behind that one is there. And another thing that indicates that we just might be able to do this or have already done it is Ben Rich. He was the head of the Lockheed Skunk Works. And he said something to the effect that we know how to take ET home, and it will not take a lifetime to do it. He said that all these technologies are locked up in black projects, and it would take an act of God to get it out to benefit mankind. If you can imagine it, we already know how to do it. I have a vivid imagination. Think about all the things that we could do, and they know how to do it according to him. There's an example here of something that actually indicates very strongly that yes, time travel is possible. There was a stock trader. His name was Andrew Carlson, Carlson, I guess it was. In 2003, he was arrested for insiders trading in New York. He started with $800, and in a few weeks, he multiplied that to $350 million. He did 126 high-risk trades and never lost on one of them. Of course, the governments looked at this. I mean, they're supposed to look at this. And they said, no, that's not possible. You got to know something. So there's insiders trading here. So they arrested him, put him in jail. They grilled him. And you can read about this if you go to, that is Weekly World News, March 19, 2003. There's an article about him written by a reporter that interviewed the police. And he's explained, I am a time traveler. I am here from the year 2256. And I read the history. I knew which one of those companies would make surprising gains. I came back and I used that information. And the thing about it is that there were no records of this guy anywhere. No social security number, no birth certificate. His name did not exist in any public records anywhere. So they didn't really have anything concrete on him, so they let him go for him to promise to come back to court. He disappeared, was never seen again. So think about that. See, Newtonian physics that forbid time travel. It cannot happen. But Newton wasn't all that versed when it comes to the capability of the mind. Newton says that time travel from the past through the present all the way into the future with a locked in stone record of the past that can be remembered and brought into the present. Well, it looks like that on the purpose. But time travel also have some paradoxes in it that is for regular science, it's yet to be figured out. One of them is the grandfather paradox. Let's say that you went back and let's say back to when you were 3 years old, you observed something and a rock fell on you and killed you. Well, how can you exist now if you got killed back there? It just couldn't happen, could it? Now, there's two schools of thought in quantum mechanics on this. One of them is that the timeline from when you got the rock thrown on you that killed you up till now, that line in quantum collapses to nothing. The other school of thought is that it continues, and as a new timeline where you exist from that point on in another timeline. And I am leaning on that other timeline, and I got some thoughts behind that. And I'm going to show you a couple of pictures. So let me share screen here. I'm going to have to jump ahead because I'm getting a little short on time. I'm going to share pictures and I'm going to show you some, let's see. Okay. Let me see. There we go. All right. Okay. All right. I'm trying to get to it. Share screen. And I'm going to share sound. Here we go. I hope you can see me. If you cannot see or cannot hear, please wave at me so I can redo this. I think it is all right. These two pictures are taken at the same time. I'm going to click on one so we can see what happens. And this picture, okay, we can see. This picture was taken on October 18, 2008. At, yeah, that's at 8, no, it's 8:36. And October 18, 8:36 and 22 seconds. All right, if you look at this picture, you can see that it's been rain, it's wet on the road. You can see down here at the very bottom, you can see some yellow on this tree, that's leaves. You can see there's a van or something sitting in the parking lot over there, and there are other differences. Let's go to the, remember that there's leaves on this tree, there's rain on the road at 8:30 and 22 seconds. I think it says. Now I'm going to go to the next picture. Okay. Did that do it? Yes. Where did the leaves go? There's no leaves on that tree. And there's no rain on the road. There's no glistening in the rain. The van is gone, but the picture is taken at the basic same time, 8:35:17. So it is 1 minute and 5 seconds apart. All the leaves had to disappear from this tree in 1 minute and 5 seconds, as well as the road has to dry up in 1 minute and 5 seconds. And when it comes to the van, I guess that is possible. The van could have driven off in that time, but there are some differences in this picture. And if you go to broadcast team alpha and go into the photo gallery, go to page 15. These are pictures number 9 and 10, and you study them because there is some text that explains how they were taken. I was sitting at the computer and did a time travel experiment. Before I started anything, I took a picture. And then hours later, I went back to the computer and I did this mind experiment when I tried to put myself back to the exact time that I took the first picture. And I took a screenshot of it. And I missed it by 1 minute and 5 seconds, but something happened that should not happen. And that is that it should not be that much change. So obviously I ended up in a different timeline. And that is what is the wild card with psychics. They can predict things in the future, but they do not understand if they end up in a different timeline, things might be different. That is what happened to me back in 2003 when BBC television came over to the United States to do a TV documentary on time travel, interview Michio Kaku and Green and myself, and I demonstrated a time travel device on that TV documentary that was showed to every English-speaking country, and that was about 1 billion people. Some of the stuff I predicted on that I have seen in the future did not happen, because now I'm in a different timeline than I would be as my mind was at that time, because back then I was all involved in the government conspiracy and fighting the government and so on. And if I had stayed in that timeline, these nasty things probably would have happened. But I switched. I went into a more spiritual arena, and that is why some of those things didn't happen. So I'm gonna also go to, here you go. This is a picture. I'm gonna show you the real thing here shortly. This is the time travel device that I had some strange experiences with. I must have experimented with that probably about 50 times, got nothing until I started inviting the mind in on the game. This is basically a radionic computer with a time chip in it. And this creates, through the magnet that I'm holding in my hand here against the solar plexus, when you plug this in, the magnet creates an extremely strong electric magnetic field. Set up a bubble around me. Anything in that bubble, like it interacts in the quantum level with the mind. Where the mind goes is where I go. And here is the time travel device. I'm going to see if I can get this into the picture. This is where it is. And there's a well in it where you can put things in it. That can be used for healing as a computer would, a radionic computer would. There's some tuning switches there, and there's a stick plate right here. So that's what it looks, that's the size of it. That's all there is to that one. Here is the magnet. I know it looks pretty crude, but it's got some power to it. I can put this on the table, put it in, put, let's say, a small metallic object a foot or two away from it, and boing, it bounces right to the magnet. So it sets up a very strong magnetic field around it. There is also this is called the time coil, which I put around my head, and you can see in the picture, I have it around my head right there. This interacts with the mind and the bubble around me. Actually, it's a focus device. It focuses on a place in the brain where there is some interaction with the universal mind. So all of this together, it makes it work. And this machine is made by a guy named Stephen Gibbs. It's the same machine that Art Bell got a hold of, and he had it sitting on his desk. He never dared to turn it on, but he had one. There's a story about this machine that I really want to tell you, and that is that there was a university student that got a hold of this machine. He got it. He lived with his parents, and he ran upstairs to his bedroom, and he in the afternoon, and he started experimenting with it. Come dinner time, his parents came and calling him down for dinner. He didn't come down, so they went upstairs, and he wasn't there. But the machine was sitting in the middle of the bed. The magnet was next to it. It was laying right there. The guy has never showed up anywhere ever since. He was gone. My point there is that this is not a toy. Don't try to go back to any time previous to when they had electricity. That is my suggestion, because it's an electronic device. And that's just a thought. But you can go into the future because you could be able to use it. I would say, if you start playing with it, try to get first, don't try to go anywhere physically. Imagine your mind going. That's where you probably would be better off until you really know what you're doing. But it's not a toy, so be a little careful with it, because it's a mind-matter interface machine. And there's many other stories that I could talk about in relation to this one. And I don't know if that's when I want to say something about time. And I'd love to have some questions at the end here, but I want to explain what time is first. Time is a mind construct for the spiritual you to have experiences in the physical, because your soul, your spiritual self, doesn't have a physical body to have physical experiences. Time itself, the construct, is composed of individual frames of present moments, stashed one after the other one, from the past through the present and going on into the future as you would imagine things in the future. If it has not been imagined, it does not exist. So if you look at that, time is pictures of present moments. In between each picture of present moment, there is nothing. The quantum field collapses, recreates itself into a new present moment, move over a little bit, so you can have that present moment, and collapses to nothing. Then it takes a little space, if you could call it that, in nothing, and then it recreates itself with a new present moment and collapses to nothing. These present moments are stashed close together, so we move through them so fast it looked like a continuous movie. And this is something that can be manipulated by thought. And there is actually an electronic device that is similar. If you ever heard people understand electronics, they will understand this. Look at a square wave generator. It is doing the same thing. You have a spike, flat top, and a collapse to nothing in the electric sine wave on the screen. Then it moves over and it rebuilds itself, flat top, and collapses to nothing. So the square wave generator is doing the exact thing as the concept of time works. It is just that the square wave generator is a lot slower, and you can see it on the screen. This one moves so fast, there is no way to take a picture of each frame. And that is my explanation of time and time travel. And I guess I got 5 minutes left. So if anybody want to do some questions here, I can stop sharing. And yeah, was there anything that I had a couple of notes here, and that is, no, I guess if there's anything that wants to have a question answered, just see if I can, what's the time coil made of, Kate? Well, yeah, it is a rubber or plastic time coil with, of course, it's a copper inside of it, I would presume. Yeah, imagination is powerful and the first step to manifestation. You could say in some ways that you are manifesting your movement into the future. So I guess you're right. And let's see.
Aage, Yvonne is asking where she can find those Chinese herbs.
The Chinese herbs. Go to Broadcast Team Alpha. Better yet, go to Broadcast Team Alpha. Scroll down into the radio programs. I got two radio programs in there. One is about 53 minutes, explains in detail what I'm doing and what people get for results from reversing. And also I go to pipingrock.com in order to buy the herbs. And I have, if you go to Broadcast Team Alpha and watch those videos, you can get my my membership code and you get a 10% discount. That might help. But I researched them and they are the best in price. And I found they got good quality and probably the best in quality.
Beautiful. Aage, great information, brother. I want to share something with you, just like an article real quick based on what you were talking about. Right. So here is an article, right, Aage? This is on a new study that just came out last year, I think. Well, no, they started a few years ago, but the study has just come out. But basically, on scientificamerican.com, they're saying that they're doing research now into the grandfather paradox. And from their theoretical research, that when you go back in time and when you go back in time and you do something to alter the timeline, the universe has this tendency to correct itself, is what they're saying, right? And that the paradox wouldn't be created, and instead, if you went back in order to, like, for example, say you killed somebody, right, in the past that completely shifted the timeline, something else would occur on that timeline to make sure that your future remains the same that it was when you first left it. What are your
Yes.
thoughts on that?
Oh, yes. The universe have a safety valve in it.
Mm-hmm.
You remember, whatever you create in your mind and you think and you create in the physical is energy. Energy doesn't go away. It just transfers itself to maybe different forms or different times. But we can go back. This is actually good. What if we did something really stupid in the past that we wish we never had done? Well, boy, do I have my hand up. So what if we want to go back and change the past? There are now scientific experiments that is done using quantum mechanics where this is possible to do. We can actually do this. Let's say that you go back to a time before that stupid thing, embed yourself in a time-coded event before that, and vision that, get that clear in your mind, and then imagine yourself making a totally different decision than the stupid one. Then you can start a new timeline from there on and develop that timeline in your mind. And you just might find yourself in that timeline where the stupid thing did not happen. Now, the thought on that is that chances are you will never know that you did the stupid thing in the other timeline. But that's what quantum mechanics is saying. But on the other hand, I have two pictures from two different timelines that should not have happened. So there must be a way to merge them from one timeline into another. I have these pictures as we speak right now. They're being scrutinized quite a bit, and they're going to check them out to make sure there's no dislocations in the pixels and things like that on it. And I'm going to report on that later when I get the written results on it.
So let me ask you this question too then. So then for bilocation, for example, right, where something shows up in two places at the same time, technically we're bilocating all the time if we're existing in parallel realities, but they have proven that in quantum mechanics that subatomic particles can be in more than one place at one time. The exact same wave, right, can be in one place at the same time. Recently, I think over the last 5 years, they were able to extend that to an actual particle, which is more than a subatomic, so an atom and above, right? So this seems like it's just the beginning phases of bilocation. What's your understanding of bilocation in relation to, all that you're covering right now?
Well, first of all, let's go back to the principle basics. The mind, for the mind, there is nothing that cannot be done. If we have the understanding and the belief and the knowing of how to do and also why. We may also need to know why, because curiosity for the universe is not really a good reason to do things, just curiosity. There got to be a reason for something deeper than that. But we can bilocate. Oh God, what did I see in the download on that? There were, let me just for about 5 seconds see if I can access some of that. There were something in there about the split of the electrons and the particles. and then joining together. Kind of like the same experiment when you take an electron, put it in half and move it to the other side of the galaxy. If you excite this one, the one on the other side of the galaxy will also have the reaction of it. That is proven in quantum mechanics. There is a split, but the mind can split it. So you are double and recreate itself as the big, I was going to go to the beginning of it all, but there's a split in energy that recreates itself into a whole. And this universe was started just like that, because there was one single particle of thought that entered this vibration, and it's wondered, what can I do on my own except away from the unified field? And then it multiplied itself throughout what we have now.
I love that explanation. It basically, you're saying, it's beautiful actually. You're saying that every fractal ends up becoming its whole entity, and therein lies the illusion that each fractal of the original source becomes its own thing, and then is also connected to the source at the same time, which is a paradox in itself.
Excellent. I wish I could have said that.
That's beautiful.
That's
well,
great.
we have another question here for you. QL is saying, is your understanding that our spiritual life force gives the inertia to jump frame to frame that appears fluid? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, those frames are not entirely physical. They have a physical expression of it, but it is not physical. So yes, there has to be a higher vibratory or spiritual energy fueling it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I don't know if it would be able to recreate itself.
Right. Some sort of driving force behind it, some sort of intention, you know?
Spiritual intention, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So we